Where do you have in mind? She asked him. You choose. Mma saw it as an opportunity to go home. I would actually love to go home, if you don't mind. I didn't come with my car. He smiled. Done, let's go. He stood up and they made their excuses. The speed at which he agreed alarmed her. The smug smile on his face was not comforting at all. She sat beside him in his car. She watched in awe the comfort he surrounded himself with. Boys to Men I'll Make Love to You wafted from the car sound system. She wondered what exactly he wanted from her. At first, he had said he wasn't interested in a whirlwind romance, but with each passing moment, she questioned if he was totally honest about that. It didn't take a genius to know that the man was attracted to her. Though she was also very attracted to him, she knew there was no future with him. She was not going to become another one of his conquests. Was that not the reason why she had not allowed any kind of intimacy in her relationship with the opposite sex? No matter how much pressure she had received from her teeming admirers, she had not shifted from her principles. And Uche was not going to become an exception. You have grown very quiet. I'm enjoying the music. She didn't realize her mistake till he spoke again. You are better off enjoying the real thing than a couple of promises over the stereo. Man knew she was a white woman, she would have blushed to the roots of her hair. That wasn't what I meant, she tried to make amends. I don't see anything wrong with a woman who enjoys her own sexuality. She kept quiet because she didn't know what else to say. She didn't think it was wise discussing such intimate matters with him. Already the love song coming from the sound system and the multiple lights from the numerous buttons on the dashboard had created a very romantic atmosphere and mood. She could feel herself basking in the quiet promises of the artist. She wished she had not asked him for a ride home, because right then the niggling thought returned, and she wasn't sure anymore what would happen when they got to her house. She wasn't sure if she had the energy and the good sense to do the right thing. So what does your fiancé think of you going out alone? That brought her back to earth. She could have kissed him for bringing Ken up. It brought her back to reality. I was hardly alone. Same difference, he wasn't there. Ken is not the possessive type, and he trusts me. When you are mine, I would never let you out in the night alone or with some couple of girls too foolish for their own good. When I'm yours, that is rich coming from you. Trust me, babe, I always get what I want. Stop talking to me like I'm some piece of property you want to acquire. He laughed. Tell me you are not tempted, just a little, to find out what it would feel like. She turned sharply to him. To be owned by you? He laughed. Not as a property, but as a lover. His words sounded like a chorus, and she actually felt herself being tempted, but good sense prevailed. No, I am not, because I'm not interested in playing some rich man's Barbie doll. He laughed again. I like you, and I know you do too, only that you are too arrogant and proud to admit it. Better arrogance than stupidity. No wonder Ken is besotted, but I wonder how a man like Ken can cope with a firebrand like you. You need a real man, one who doesn't sit at your back. Are you suggesting I'm intimidating? For some limbless man like Ken, yes you would be. He stopped the car in front of her house and turned to her. He stared at her, wishing he could take her home, but at the same time knowing the time was not right. Mma became a little fidgety. She was nervous and confused about her feelings. She couldn't believe that she was disappointed that their evening had come to an end. She wanted to prolong it, but she wasn't sure how. Well, thank you for bringing me home, she said and tried to distract her jumping nerves by reaching for the door. It was the least I could do. He leaned forward and kissed her. She melted into his body and became giddy with the potent male scent that was naturally his. Her hands circled his neck of their own volition. Uche had kissed several women in the past that he thought all women were the same. Here he was being proved wrong in the hands of another woman. He had never felt like he couldn't get close enough to a woman. He wanted to have her in his hands forever. Shocked at his thoughts, he slowly released her. He could feel fear seep into his body. He didn't want to have those kind of feelings for a woman. He didn't want to be emotionally dependent on any woman. He had to leave. He had to get away from her before he made a promise he would never keep. He smiled with arrogant male satisfaction when he saw how unsettled she was by the kiss. "Good night," he said as he pressed a button to unlock the car. "Good night," she replied, and quietly left the car. He watched as she unlocked her door and walked in. When the lights came on, he reversed and drove away, half happy, half sad. He was well aware that no promises were made. She had wished him good night, but to him it was goodbye. What he wanted was an affair, but in his mind he knew that a woman like Mma meant deeper commitments. He was not ready for that. Mma watched him drive away, and she felt her heart sank, because she realized that she only wished him good night, but it felt like goodbye. She sank to the nearest seat and had the greatest urge to cry. The next few days that followed, Mma plunged herself into her work. She had found out that only that could make her forget Uche Okoha and his forgotten interest in her. Sometimes she would get angry, very angry, to think that he could just come into her life when he wanted and leave when it suited him. But didn't he tell her when they first met that he was not looking for a whirlwind romance? His only interest in her was introducing her to his mother. Even that made no impact to her business life. She wished she had never set her eyes on him. She wished she hadn't gone out with him. She wished they hadn't shared that last kiss. Even the thought of it caused goosebumps on her body. Was he even affected by the kiss like she was? She shook her head from side to side in self-pity. It was no good. Uche was a mystery she would never be able to unravel. She stood up from her table, and just then her assistant Helen came in. A very beautiful girl who didn't know how beautiful she looked. Yet, she never ceased to exude that aura of warmth and peace. "Good afternoon. I just wanted to check if you want something. I'm on my way to lunch," Helen spoke. Always like Helen to look out for her, Mma thought. "Very kind of you, Helen. I nearly forgot, and considering that I didn't have breakfast." "You work too hard, Mma. So what would you have?" "I'm so hungry that I cannot wait for you, so I would rather join you," Mma smiled. She took a minute to powder her face. As she was doing that, she gave Helen a side look and decided she was going to coach the girl on some beauty tips. "So what powder do you use?" Helen looked confused for a moment, but smiled still. "I am not like you, Mma. It doesn't matter if I use one or not. I am too plain to do justice to it." "You give yourself little credit. You are one of the most beautiful girls I've ever seen." Helen smiled shyly. Mma could see that she didn't believe her. "You have very good figure if you would just wear the right clothes and use the right makeup. And come to think of it, you have a very creative mind with clothes. Why not with yourself?" "Do you think I'm not classy enough to work here?" Mma wasn't offended. She could see that Helen was a bit nervous, which was new to her. She had always seen Helen as a very confident girl who didn't have time for frivolities, or else she wouldn't have survived as her assistant. "You know I'm not, but I hate to see any beauty go through life unnoticed. Isn't that why we make beautiful clothes?" Helen smiled, guilty as charged. "I promise to wear better fitting clothes from this day forward and do up my face. Shall we go and eat now?" she whined. Helen was back to her usual cheerful nature. "Yes, but not before I show you some tricks." She brought out her makeup kit and proceeded to turn Helen into the beauty she really was. Uche was not having a better day himself. He had been to the Niger Delta twice in the last few days, trying to forestall potential upheavals. He had even meddled in politics, which was his worst game, and he had one or two satisfaction of twisting some arms and hearing them yelp. Now he was back in town only to find out that he had to be in New York and UK in the coming week. "Whoever called the life of a rich man idle," he murmured. He was glad of the challenges. They helped him forget Mma. The girl was trouble. Just one kiss and he was thinking of forever with her. He had never been as scared as he was that night when he kissed her. He still remembered the kiss. It made him unbearably uncomfortable. The most annoying part was that no other woman interested him. While in Port Harcourt, a few had tried, but he found out that he could only think of Mma, but he was equally as determined to forget her. He wasn't ready for that kind of commitment yet. He looked up as his sister entered, and he managed a smile for her. Star told me you've decided to kill yourself with work. I don't think you should have time to think about anyone else but Charles, he replied, a bit irritated. You're my brother. Loving another man doesn't take away that fact, or the fact that I love you. Charles and I are having a little get-together to say thank you to those who graced our engagement party. Another party? Eva, you just had one a few days ago. Yes, I did, but this one is different. It is a small thing, 10 people max. I would come if I'm free. Okay, for now. She got up. Bring Mma, I think I like her. Uche tactfully kept quiet. He pitied his friend. Eva was spoilt, good and proper. Another party, barely 2 weeks after her engagement party. He shuddered. Bring Mma, she had said. Only him knew how impossible that was. He knew that if he made the mistake of seeing her again, there would be no turning back. He laughed silently. He didn't believe that a day would come when he would be afraid of a woman. Mma was closeted in her studio, alone, working steadily for the past few hours. When her door opened, she expected Helen, the angel who always came to save her from herself. When she looked up, she saw Eva. Hello, they said I could find you here. Mma was too surprised to speak. Customers were never allowed into the studio, not to talk of her own studio. Everyone knew she preferred to work alone. Hiding her irritation, she commanded her brain to focus on her visitor. Hi. Am I disturbing you? I could leave and... No, not at all. I was just surprised. I hardly receive visitors up here. So how are you? You came to shop? Yes, I came to look around the place. And I think you have a big thing going on here. Mma smiled and realized the girl was still standing. Please sit down. She indicated a couch where she had been forced to sleep on when she walked into the night. Thank you, Eva sat. There was an awkward silence while Mma wondered what the girl really wanted. I know you're wondering why I'm here, Eva said. You couldn't be more right. I am having a little get-together at my house tonight. I was wondering if you could come. Oh, well, Mma was startled by the sudden invite. Her first thought was to turn her down. She was still recovering from saying yes to her friends a few nights ago. Please don't say no. I would really like to get to know you, Eva pleaded. Mma smiled uncertainly. Oh, okay, I will come. What time is it? Mma asked. Then it dawned on her that Uche might be there. She didn't bother to understand the mixed feelings of excitement and fear that gripped her. She had long stopped trying to sort out what it was she felt for Uche Okoha exactly. Well, 6? It is not a formal affair. I am just serving pre-dinner drinks with close friends, and after that people can continue with their dinner engagements. Mma wanted to ask if her brother would be at the party, but she didn't want the girl to mistake her interest. How is it going with Uche? Mma was startled. How like her brother she was, confidently asking questions that could embarrass. Mma smiled. I have been very busy, so it has been difficult to see him. Was it surprise she saw in the girl's eyes? She was sure no woman had spoken of her brother so flippantly. The party would be a good opportunity for you to spend some time together. Since I'm offering only pre-dinner drinks, you could make further plans for the evening. Mma smiled. Contrary to what your brother told you, I want to assure you that we are not really that serious. Not now, and I don't see that happening in the future. Eva laughed. Well, I am glad there is one woman on earth who doesn't think my brother walk on water. She laughed again and stood up, her mission accomplished. Eva was glad she decided to invite the girl personally. When her brother had kept quiet about her, she knew he might bring someone else, and she was scared he might decide to bring Angela. See you tonight? She smiled at Mma. Mma liked the girl, and yet she couldn't put a finger on why she did. She stood up too and walked her to the door. Thanks for coming. and for taking the trouble to invite me. As soon as she left, Mma knew her peace of mind had gone with her, so it was again inevitable that she would see him. As she was thinking, a thought occurred to her. So the man had the guts to ignore her after all the innuendos he applied. Well, she was going to make him beg for it. She was going to that party and she was going to look so good that all the men there would be salivating at the thought of her. She could probably go with Ken to add insult to the injury.
In the still of the night, I think of you. My heart beats with every thought of